Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm still Joey Zoe and I'm still in the French Alps, but today I am going to tell you the 6 best ways I've thought of to bring your sewing on holiday. Now before I get too far into this video, in fact before I go any further, I'm going to say I am sure I have not thought of all of the ways that you could bring your sewing on holiday and crafting. So if you've got other ways that you can bring your sewing on holiday, other ideas occur to you while you're watching this, please tell me them down in the comments below and then we can share them all together. So if you haven't watched my recent videos, you won't know I'm on holiday. I don't always live in the French Alps. I'm still on my balcony if you have watched recent videos. I'm normally in the north of England, but I'm on holiday at the moment. And so that's why I'm talking to you about bringing my sewing on holiday. I've changed the angle slightly. You were looking kind of that way last time. This time I deliberately put the snowy mountain behind me, so you definitely know I'm in the Alps. Tomorrow we are going to the Swiss side of the Alps, and I have my fingers crossed that I might get some fabric shopping done, or if not shopping, looking, because Switzerland, especially Geneva, which is where we're going, is renowned for being insanely expensive. So there may not be any buying, but there'll be some looking. And then after I've told you my 6 ways of bringing my sewing on holiday, there will be another video uploaded on the very same day, and I'm going to show you the ways I have brought my sewing on holiday. And I have used, I'm going to say 3 of the 6 I'm telling you about, because I didn't pack light this time. So way number 1. This is the way I probably use most often, especially if I'm going somewhere in England. It is hand sewing, the finishing of a garment. So I'm talking about hand sewing the hem. Maybe you could hand sew buttonholes. Maybe you could hand sew a zip, which is less mad than you might think. Hand picking a zip, I think it's called. Often you will find me hand sewing a hem in a car or a train on a journey somewhere. So if I make a garment, I deliberately do everything. I try the hem on, I have it pressed, and then I leave it to one side. And I wait until I'm on my journey, because the only tools it requires me to take with me are a needle, some thread, and a small pair of scissors, and you're good to go, assuming that you were going to take the garment on holiday anyway. And we often sew for our holidays, so I've made that assumption. So hand sewing on a garment, any kind of finishing. The other thing you could do is also hand sew mending. So if you've got a bunch of mending but you want to take it with you, or if you are driving, as we did on this holiday, and the luggage allowance doesn't matter that much and you can afford to pop it in the car, then you can take that pile of mending, the stuff you haven't been getting round, pick through it, pick out the ones that are hand sewing jobs. Maybe it's just a button, pop them all in a box and take those with you, because if you're on holiday, you're going to have much more time to sit around. I hope. We're having a busy holiday, but I still have much more time to sit around here than I do at home. So you can get your hand sewing projects done. That is my number 1. My number 2 also involves hand sewing. And let's be honest, these all involve hand something, because I'm not talking about heave your sewing machine into a car. You could do that, but I'm keeping it real, and most of us are either going to be going on a plane or a train, or haven't got space in our automobile. So I'm talking about hand sewing. So number 2 is embroidery. So there are loads of ways that you could bring your embroidery on holiday. Maybe the first one is that you're rubbish at hand sewing, so you want to bring some projects along with you to practice hand sewing. And there is a great book called The Geometry of Hand Sewing. I've got it on my bookshelves at home, and maybe I was looking up to remember. And it has loads of practice. I mean, it's a beautiful book anyway, and it's about the beauty of hand sewing. I will put a link down below, non-affiliate and everything, but it's a great book. And that has lots of practice exercises to get better at hand sewing. So you could do that within an embroidery project or just within a practice project. Or you could actually do an entire embroidery project, you know, a hoop. There are lots of people on Etsy that sell ready-made kits, so you could just buy yourself one of those. Often they even come with a needle. You might need to take a tiny pair of scissors with you and you're good to go. Or there are also, you can get magazines where they don't provide you with all materials and everything, but you can get the pattern for very little money. So there are lots of ways you can get your hands on an embroidery project. But if you don't want to do just an embroidery like a hoop or a cushion cover or something like that, you can embroider onto a garment. So if you like the look of, say, an embroidered something or other on the collar, or maybe around the edge of a collar, maybe down, I'm wearing a shirt, so maybe down the button band of your shirt, or on the cuffs, or embroidery on the bottom pockets on jeans, you know, wherever you might want to put embroidery. And it could be traditional embroidery, or it could be modern embroidery, it could be sashiko, you know, it doesn't have to be just a flower, but it could definitely be just a flower. So anything like that, you could embroider onto a project. Also, similar but different, so not embroidering onto a finished garment, you could cut out your pattern pieces. Say you've got a project at home, you're going to start it when you get back, or you got it part way finished like me and didn't bring it with you because it wasn't finished enough. You could bring one of the pattern pieces with you and embroider that pattern piece before you use it. I would only recommend you do that if you know that pattern and you know how it fits and you know when you want to put it, because you could do a whole load of beautiful embroidery on a piece that doesn't work for you in the garment. But you could do it on a pattern piece that you have from a pattern at home that you can look forward to getting back to when you're back at home. Or you could embroider onto a flat piece of fabric. This might be a big project, but say you wanted to do sashiko, like simple Japanese running stitches, you could bring a whole piece of fabric with you and do your sashiko on there, so it is ready for you to make a beautiful project out of when you get home. And what I love about that idea is that, I don't know about you, but I would be really, really unlikely to sit down and spend all of that time in my time at home. But I think I might sit down and spend all of that time on holiday doing a whole piece of fabric, and then I would also remember exactly where I did it when I used that in a garment, so it could be a lovely memento of your holiday. And so for any of these hand sewing projects, you need to take very little with you: the right thread, the right needle, and something to cut it with, and that's pretty much it. So they're very, very lightweight, very easy to pack. Moving on to my third idea of how to take your sewing on holiday with you, I think you could take embellishment with you. So it's a little bit like the last one in that, why not choose something that you probably would never sit down and do at home, but you're going to have more time on holiday? How about sequins? How about beading? Or how about anything else like a pliquing fabric, pliquing ribbon, any embellishment you can think of, making fabric flowers and putting them all over a dress or a bodice, or, you know, all sorts of fabric manipulation and embellishment like that. On holiday would be a great time to do that. What is my fourth one? So my fourth one, not actually sewing, but I know a lot of you do knit and crochet, so I've put that in there. So knitting and crochet, the one thing that I love about knitting and crochet more than sewing, I know, is that it's so portable. So the original craft of knitting and crochet is super portable. It always has been, it always will be. Those of us who do our sewing using a machine, we're never going to be able to match the portability of your average knitting or crochet project. So of course, maybe that's what you reach for first and bring that on holiday. If you don't, why not use your holiday to learn knitting or crochet? I attempted to learn crochet on one holiday, didn't go so well, did not come back having learnt crochet, which was somewhat frustrating, but it was before the days of the internet. And so I had one book with me, one little booklet, and I just could not get my head around those instructions. I had all the stuff I needed. I had made a poor choice of yarn, and I was using a tiny little crochet hook, which is really, really difficult. I should have used something bigger, but I couldn't do the craft yet. How would I know? Anyway, but now we have the internet. If the set of instructions you take with you, or the human you take with you who's going to teach you, you don't get it, you can turn to any other YouTuber anywhere else on the internet, and you can use that information to learn a new craft. So if knitting and crochet isn't part of your repertoire right now, and you'd love a scarf or a woolly hat, then you could take it on holiday, and you might look like a lunatic if you're going on a hot holiday knitting a woolly hat, but you could do it. It doesn't matter. So number 5 is a bit ambitious, but I know there are plenty of you out there who are ambitious. Why not sew an entire garment by hand while you're on holiday. You could do it. Now, I know that, oh, I've forgotten her name, the lovely girl who does Lost My Thread. I'm so sorry, I've forgotten her name. I watch her channel all the time, and I know she's from the US and she is going back home this summer. She may even be there now. And I know she had talked on her channel about planning to do a whole garment, I think in Liberty Lawn fabric, while she was away. And it's something I've actually toyed with. So when she said she was going to do it, I said, it's such a great idea. And I know that she's going to talk about it over on her channel. So if she's already started doing it, there will be a link. I will put one to her channel. And if she hasn't, I recommend her channel anyway. She does great videos. Lost My Thread is the name of it, and I feel terrible, I cannot remember her name. But yeah, she's making a whole garment by hand on her travels back to the US this summer, which sounds like a great idea. I've got some tips for what you might want to choose if you've never thought through this idea yourself. I would say definitely needs to be wovens, because sewing knits by hand, I guess you could do it, but boy, is it going to be hard. So it needs to be a woven fabric, probably something lightweight so it's not too bulky, but that's up to you. I would also say it needs to be something you've made before and you know it fits you, or it's something that it doesn't matter really too much how it fits, because surely we all get brokenhearted when we have to rip seams out, but if you have spent hours hand sewing that seam, how brokenhearted is that going to be? A lot. So try and choose a pattern that you've made before if you can, and if not, then know that you're taking a risk. Probably making it simple is going to make it easier to hand sew, although I think there's probably an argument to say that sometimes hand sewing is easier with a more complex garment. So you don't necessarily have to stay away from sleeves, but I was thinking maybe a vest or a t-shirt shape would be good. Nothing with too many pleats, nothing with a lot of, or any, if you can avoid it, top stitching, maybe a little bit of top stitching. That's going to be quite tricky to do if you are doing that hand sewing. Absolutely doable. People used to do it in the past and people still do it now. It's just trickier. The other thing to bear in mind is that you are really going to need an access to an iron at some point, if possible. Now, most hostels, most hotels, most self-catering places are likely to have an iron, so you could check that before you pack your own. Or there are little mini irons where the plate of the iron is just so big, and as long as you've got a travel adapter, you can use those, as long as you're going somewhere with electricity. So camping might not work for this, and you might feel like you can get away without having an iron, but I'm not sure that there's a bird again every time. The birds are super tame here. Yeah, I'm not sure that you would 100% get away with an iron, but what do I know? Maybe you would with your project, but it's something to definitely think about when you think through the steps of the garment that you choose. And of course, you could throw all that out and make something really complicated by hand sewing. Why not? If you want to do it, then of course you can totally do it. And then my sixth idea for how to take your sewing on holiday doesn't involve taking any sewing equipment at all. It involves taking a book. I don't know about you, but I have a lot of sewing books on my shelves at home. Some of them I've been gifted as presents, some of them I bought myself. A lot of them I love to find a sewing book in a second-hand shop, and I've got quite a few vintage sewing books that, if I'm honest, I've only ever really flicked through and thought, oh, that was good, it's only £2, yes please, I'll take that from a charity shop, and I haven't looked at them. And also for me, a while ago I got gifted a box of someone who was clearing out a sewing studio, and I got gifted a box of stuff, some of which I kept and some of which I gifted, and I know I haven't looked through a lot of those. So why not take one of these techniques or drafting or design inspiration books, whatever you've got on your shelf, most of us have got at least one, to read while you're on holiday. And you can read a book however you want, you do you, but you could, again, I would never sit down and read a sewing book, especially a sewing techniques book, from cover to cover at home. Maybe I wouldn't do that on holiday either, but I would read it more thoroughly, with more interest, away from home, away from the distractions, away from the other things that draw my time, than when I was away. So if you, for whatever reason, can't or don't want to take any of those actual projects away, take a book. and you'll arrive home super inspired. So those are my 6 ideas. I don't have 6 fingers on one hand. Those are my 6 ideas for what you can take on holiday to keep your sewing with you. In my next video, which is coming up straight away, I'm putting up 2 videos on one day here, I'm going to show you what I have actually chosen. 3 of those ideas I have brought with me on my holiday to the French Alps, and I'm going to share them with you. So I hope you will join me straight away, right over at that video, or maybe you came from there. So I'll see you soon. Bye.